Gentlemen, would you like to step forward and just tell us a little bit about yourselves? Which troop you're in?
Yeah, of course. So the three of us are from Troop 51, stationed at the American Legion just down the road. We're here doing a requirement for Eagle Scout, which is called Citizenship in the Community, where we gotta do a lot of research of city government and sit in on a meeting and ask them questions in the form of an interview about a problem in our community. So just really glad to be here. Very pretty pledge, and thank you for giving us the honor of doing the pledge. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. I believe we have at least one Eagle Scout on our council this evening. I believe so. Councilman Binder, weren't you an Eagle Scout?
No, that was not me.
That was not you. I could have sworn we had one. My apologies.
Lauren asked me the same thing.
So we do have the consent agenda as first item on tonight's agenda, and that includes the council meeting minutes from the meeting of 4/25/2022. Is there anything that council member would like to withdraw from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel to approve the council meeting minutes and the consent agenda, and a second by Councilman Dorito. All those in favor, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously with Councilman Mitchell abstaining because he was not present, so he is required to abstain since he wasn't here for the meeting. Next item up on the agenda is the appointment of city attorneys. And there is a resolution that will have to be read speedily. Mr. Regas, you have the floor.
Mayor and Council, thanks. Resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alfreda, Georgia, to appoint Gerard and Davis, LLP, as city attorneys. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Alfreda that this resolution reflects the agreement of the City of Alfreda that effective May 2nd, 2022, Gerard and Davis, LLP, J&D, is hereby appointed to serve as city attorneys under the following terms and conditions. Designated areas of responsibility. J&D shall be responsible for the general legal representation of the City of Alfreda and all of its agencies, employees, elected officials, and departments irrespective of the nature or type of legal matter involved, and specifically including but not limited to matters of litigation, property acquisition, zoning, contract review and negotiation, and general counsel and advice. The representation. Rate of fees. The representation as defined above shall be provided at the billable rate set forth in the schedule of hourly rates attached hereto is Exhibit A. 3, billing methodology. A copy of J&D's statement of client policies and electronic research and billing policy are attached hereto is Exhibit B. 4, conflict counsel. In the event that J&D is presented with a legal conflict on a certain matter for which J&D has responsibility and no waiver of conflict is secured, the City Council, upon becoming apprised of such conflict by J&D, shall appoint different counsel to handle the matter in resolution of the conflict. J&D is authorized to provide a recommendation regarding selection of conflict counsel, and absent unusual circumstances, conflict counsel shall charge at a rate that is the same as set forth in paragraph 2. 5, expenses. Expenses incurred such as computerized research, postage, copying, transcripts, court reporters, expert witness fees, and other out-of-pocket expenses shall be billed directly to the city. Termination. This appointment shall be terminated at any time with or without cause upon a vote of the City of Alfreda City Council in open session to so terminate. If an attorney or firm is otherwise serving a city attorney to Alfreda at the time of this resolution, said attorney or firm's retention is hereby terminated. So resolved the second day of May, 2022.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council at this time? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if there is anyone here that would like to come forward on the resolution regarding appointment of city attorneys, now's your opportunity. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mayor, I move
move to
Adopt a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to appoint Gerard and Davis LLP as our new city attorneys.
Second. Have a motion by Councilman Dorito, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, and that was to approve the resolution as read by City Administrator Bob Regas regarding the appointment of Gerard and Davis LLP as Alpharetta city attorneys. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Regas.
Mayor?
And I'm glad to have someone on board that will hopefully read resolutions a little faster next time.
Well, you know, we're moving to not having to read the resolutions at all.
Even better.
Yeah, starting next week. So, and introduce Molly S. Wine.
Molly, if you wouldn't mind, take a moment just to introduce yourself to everyone.
Of course. So, thank you. My name is Molly Eswine. I am an attorney with the law firm of Gerard and Davis. Gerard and Davis is delighted to be and very proud to be part of the Alfreda team now. We are a local government law firm, so all we do is represent local governments and authorities, counties and cities, and we're so happy to be part of Alfreda's team and look forward to working with y'all. We've already had a really warm reception by mayor and council as well as staff. I got a comprehensive tour from Lauren today going around, and we are ready to hit the ground running. So I'm just looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Molly. And I'll just say, Alpharetta has been blessed to have tremendous legal representation for more than 35 years. And we are grateful for you and your firm stepping up to take over those duties now. So welcome aboard. Well, that being done, we'll now move on to the next portion of tonight's agenda, and that's presentations and proclamations. We do have 3 this time. We'll begin with the National Therapy Animal Day proclamation. Ms. Wise, if you'll meet me down front. Welcome, Ms. White.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Just that I appreciate the support of the city in therapy animals and the positive impact that they can make on the community. And I look forward to doing more therapy with her and making people smile.
Would you like to introduce her?
Yes. Sorry. This is Reba. She's almost 5 years old. She had a little rough start, but she has been doing animal therapy for 2 years. Currently, we're visiting one of the local assisted living facilities. We visit memory care. We visit residents who can't leave their rooms, and we also visit with the staff. We are expanding to doing some schools, and I would love to do some local businesses as well. Work therapy is a thing, so it really is. I mean, it makes people happy to just have an animal around. This one has not stopped purring since I picked her up.
And her name is Reba?
Her name is Reba.
Okay, great.
Yes.
That being said, I will go ahead and read the proclamation by the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia for National Therapy Animal Day, April 30th, 2022. Whereas across the nation within the city of Alpharetta, therapy animal teams interact with a variety of people in our community: veterans, senior citizens, medical patients, students with disabilities, and those who are approaching the end of life. And whereas therapy animals can help make a difference in the lives of citizens within our community by improving their mental wellness, especially with helping to decrease fear, anxiety, loneliness, and isolation. Therapy animals are certified and tested on their demeanor, and their handlers take certification courses as well. Whereas Alpharetta Therapy Cat and resident Reba and her owner and handler, Dawn Wise, are a therapy animal team through the national organization Pet Partners. Pet Partners has over 10,000 therapy animal teams serving in communities across the United States combined. Pet Partners therapy animal teams complete millions of therapy visits per year in settings such as hospitals, nursing homes, hospice, and schools. And whereas Reba and Ms. Wise visit one of our local senior communities, Oaks at Alpharetta, on a weekly basis to help create a positive impact on the lives of residents within our community. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2022 to be the National Therapy Animal Day in the city of Alpharetta. So proclaim this second day of May, 2022. James is our official photographer.
She looks away when you get the camera out.
Shy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're done, right?
Yes. Thank you. Next up will be recognition for public service recognition. Chris Randall, if you would please come forward and join me. If you would, share a few words.
I'm here to represent all of the employees of the city of Alfreda, and every May, first week of May of every year, we celebrate Public Service Week, which recognize all employees from a federal, state, county, and local level. That ensures that we continue to have a beautiful community, safe and fun, and beautiful for all of us. So the employees of the city of Alfreda makes what we are today, and we should be very proud of every single one of them.
And I couldn't agree more. I know as mayor and all of our elected officials feel the same way, because fortunately, while we do get credit when things go well, we know that it's not us that make those things happen. It's our 450 employees that are out there every day serving the people of Alpharetta, the visitors that come here, and you do create the environment that makes our jobs possible. So we're very grateful and we appreciate you all. So I will read the proclamation. That's a proclamation by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, Public Service Recognition Week. Whereas each day, Alpharetta citizens and residents and communities all across America benefit from the efforts of public employees at the local, state, and federal level, and whereas these public employees do not simply accept jobs, they take oaths and dedicate themselves to provide the diverse services demanded by citizens, efficiently and with integrity, and often placing the needs of others above their own. And whereas public servant include military personnel, police officers, firefighters, teachers, public works crews, engineers, planners, accountants, and dedicated personnel in countless other occupations. And whereas without these committed public servants from every level, continuity of government and delivery of crucial services would not be possible, especially in a democracy that experiences change in its elected leaders and elected officials. And now, therefore, we, the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, do hereby proclaim May 2nd through 6th, 2022 to be Public Service Recognition Week in the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, and urge all citizens of the city of Alpharetta to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of government employees, especially those of our city, and acknowledge the impact they make on our citizens' quality of life and the success of our community. So proclaim this second day of May, 2022. Before we get a picture, could all of our employees come on up so you can join us in the photo? Come on, Laura.
Maybe the scout would like to take the picture for James. I'm very happy to be behind the scenes.
He's an Eagle Scout. He's quite capable, James. Squeeze in like we like each other.
There's no COVID here.
Yeah, I'll present it to you.
There you go.
Okay.
Bob Bob needs to hold it. That's gonna be his last one.
Bob.
You're the one holding it. It's gonna be your last one that you're gonna hold.
Public employee, and we're recognizing you, of course. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Now you may give a speech.
Okay, let's get on with the meeting.
Fair enough. Third item will be Bike Month, May 2022. Bike Alpharetta, would you like to come forward?
Yes.
If you do, just take a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell us why you're here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jackie, and this is Sandy and Dennis, and we're on the board of Bike Alpharetta. We wanted to remind you that we are here. It's our 10th year as a nonprofit, and we wanted to remind everyone it's National Bike Month. Bicycles are used to commute, to work, not just recreation. So we have a lot of people that use the Big Creek Greenway to do for their commuting, which is great. And we are also wanted to say how much we love what the city has done with the Big Creek Greenway extension. It is absolutely beautiful. And it's very safe. We love that too. So thank you. That's why we're here. And we'll say a little bit more in a few minutes and on an update.
Thank you very much. So I do have a proclamation I'll read now, and that is a proclamation by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, Bike Month, May 2022. Whereas the bicycle is an economical, healthy, convenient, and environmentally sound form of transportation and an excellent tool for recreation and enjoyment of Alpharetta's scenic beauty. And whereas throughout the month of May, Alpharetta residents and visitors will experience the joys of bicycling through educational programs, races, commuting events, charity events, or by simply getting out and going for a ride. And whereas Alpharetta roads and trail systems attract bicyclists each year, providing economic, health, transportation, tourism, and scenic benefits, and whereas creating a bicycle-friendly community has not only been shown to improve citizens' health, well-being, and quality of life, but also promotes growth of local economies, attracts tourism dollars, improves traffic safety, and reduces pollution, congestion, and wear and tear on our streets and roads. And whereas Bike Alpharetta, the League of American Bicyclists, other civic groups, and numerous local governments across the United States are promoting bicycling during the month of May 2022. And whereas these groups also promote bicycle tourism year-round to attract more visitors to enjoy our local restaurants, hotels, retail establishments, and cultural and scenic attractions in an effort to reduce collisions, injuries, and fatalities and improve health and safety for everyone on the road. These groups also promote public awareness of bicycle operation and bicycle safety education. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, in recognition of the benefits of bicycling and of National Bike Month, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Bike Month in the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, and urge all residents to try cycling for fun, fitness, or transportation, and to learn and practice the rules and strategies for safely sharing the road with bicyclists. So proclaimed this second day of May 2022.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Slow. There we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Great.
You're welcome.
Who knows, maybe one day there'll be a mayor's ride in Alfreda.
Now, coincidentally, the next item up on our agenda is partnership updates. And the only item under partnership updates is an update from Bike Alpharetta.
All right.
Ms. Tyson, if you would.
We'll take the floor. We'll make this brief. But we wanted to give you an update. It is our 10th year as a nonprofit. And one of the key things we wanted to let you know is that the cyclists in our community are not just there riding around for fun. There's a lot of commuters. We've had a lot of people come here, rent bicycles, bring their own to actually visit and spend money. So there is a lot of evidence of this being economic impact. And one of the cool things we love about the city is that we have a national recognition. And this is the 4th year we have been recognized as a bicycle-friendly community. There's 5 factors. The key into this, Dennis helped a lot, and Officer Amanda Clay was a wonderful advocate to help this get through with the city. So the national designation recognizes us not just for the Greenway, which is wonderful, but it's what we provide with education and through economic development and some other of the E's that go into this very long 48-page application. That is up for renewal at the end of this year. So we hope that the city and we are here to help to get that application put back in so that we can extend that for another 4 years. So it goes beyond just having signs, which you see in the visual, to say that we are a bicycle-friendly community. It's beyond just having a recognition with the sign. We then actually try to uphold that to get people to obey traffic laws as a cyclist, have the drivers understand how to share the road, which one of the key things is the police officers have done has gone to local businesses such as Uber and Lyft drivers, UPS delivery, Federal Express, how they are on the roads a lot. And what do they do when they encounter a bicycle? We want to keep people safe. So thank you for doing that. We also, Bike Alfreda, we also are involved with Bikes for Kids. There's a couple of stats. So that's one of the things where we give back is that we collect these very used bikes in the fall. We clean and repair them in one day. In one day, we get 180 volunteers. It's a big day. And then we were able to clean and repair and make 324 of those bicycles Santa ready in one day. We give them all to North Fulton Community Charities. We take no money for doing that. That's something we love to do. That program is now in its 15th year. So we're very proud. And then the last thing I will mention is the Big Creek Greenway. A couple of years ago, we got a grant from REI, a local business. Bike Alpharetta, we got one of the largest grants they had actually distributed in the United States. It was $10,000. We used the majority of that money to create a map of the Greenway and print them. So while through COVID we found that a lot of people don't want to touch paper, they still do. And we're back to that now. So we have little kiosks that we fill at parks. The Alfreda Convention and Visitors Bureau distributes them. The Alfreda Business Association says it's the #1 request item at the farmer's market, besides vegetables and fruit, are the Greenway maps. So what we are doing and thank you very much to the Alpharetta Parks and Recreation Department. They are helping us with the expansion that's beautiful. So we've expanded and we revised our map to make it larger. So when you pick it up, it's not an 8.5 by 11, it's a little larger. And the opposite side of the map, the printed map, actually has information on safety, as when we have special help on that from a local realtor with Harry Norman, and also the Alpharetta Convention and Visitors Bureau is helping us to get 10,000 of those maps printed. So we'll get them out so that people can, and imagine, yes, people do get lost on the Greenway. It does go back and up and down, but people still get lost, so they like having the map because the #1 asked question is, where can I go eat? Well, besides where am I? Where can I go eat? They want to spend money, so the map helps them to make that connection before the Alpha Loop actually makes the full connection. So that's it. Are there any questions for us?
Any questions from council? Councilman Hypes.
Well, I'm going to deviate a little bit, Mr. Mayor, from questions. I just want to congratulate you guys because you guys are a particularly effective organization. Your advocacy, I mean, the city, the residents are really fortunate to have Bike Alpharetta. It's your advocacy, it's your giving back to North Fulton Charities, all those things you mentioned. And you are appreciated very much for what you're doing here in the city. So thank you.
thank you, because you're all volunteers. So we appreciate that very much.
Any other questions from council?
All right, maps will be ready in about 2 weeks.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening. So that will wrap up our partnership updates for this evening. We'll move on to old business. First item under old business and only item under old business will be the Code of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia text amendments, city parks, rules, and regulations, and designation of the Alpha Loop as a city park. This is the second reading. Mr. Drinkard, I believe you and Director Rogers have this item. If I recall, you'll be reading the unfunded portion of this.
That is correct, sir. Actually, we're not going to read it as the second reading. There have not been any changes since the first reading.
Fair enough. Any questions from council at this time? Holly, would you like to read the resolution, please?
Yes. So an ordinance to amend Article 1, Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend the rules and regulations for parks owned and operated by the city, to designate the Alpha Loop as a city park, to repeal conflicting ordinances, and for other purposes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this change to the Code of City of Alpharetta, Georgia text amendments for city parks, rules, and regulations, designation of the Alpha Loop as a city park, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that council adopt and pass the ordinance to amend Article 1, Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend rules and regulations for parks owned and operated by the city, to designate the Alpha Loop as a city park, to repeal conflicting ordinances, and for other purposes.
I have a motion by Councilman Hypes and a second by Councilman Will, and that was to approve the Code of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia text amendments as read by City Attorney Holly. And I'm sorry, Holly, what's your last name again?
It's Eswine.
Eswine. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes, otherwise vote no. It does pass unanimously. Next, we'll move on to new business portion of tonight's meeting, and we'll begin with the Memorandum of Understanding regarding Davis Drive. Director Sisevich, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. 49 is an MOU. It's with the City of Alfreda, the North Fulton Community Improvement District, and Fulton County. Specifically with Fulton County, it's the Water and Sewer Division. Davis Drive is currently under construction, and Fulton, part of the project was the installation of water and sewer lines for Fulton County. Fulton County cannot write a check to the CID, so we are a middleman. So the contractor is going to build the North Fulton CID, who is under contract with. CID is going to invoice the city is going to invoice the county is going to write a check to the city and go backwards that way. So we'll just a strict middleman in this. The Fulton County has approved it, the MOU, as well as the Fulton CID, so we're the last leg.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Just to clarify, Pete, so there is no financial obligation or liability on the part of the City of Alpharetta in this?
It's just strictly a pass-through.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify for anyone who's paying attention out there in video land. Mr. Shapiro, do we have any public cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward and speak on the Memorandum of Understanding regarding Davis Drive, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor, I move to approve the Memorandum of Understanding between Fulton County, North Fulton Community Improvement District, and the City of Alfreda for the installation of water and sewer utilities in association with Davis Drive project, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
We do have a motion by Councilman Dorito and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, and that was regarding the approval of the Memorandum of Understanding regarding Davis Drive between Fulton County, North Fulton Community Improvement District, and the City of Alpharetta for the installation of water and sewer utilities in association with the Davis Drive project, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Pete. Glad to get that one underway. Your next item, Mr. Sasevich, is the award of the contract for mid-block crosswalks, ITB 22-007.
This is T-2 project. So T-2 started April 1st, and we're already guns a-blazing. We have 4 mid-block crosswalks, and these 4 mid-block crosswalks are at Milton Avenue, from the Teasley Street, Maple Street area, and the 92 Milton Avenue parking deck, Mayfield Road in front of Alfreda Elementary School, Cogburn Road in front of Cogburn Park, and Mid-Broadwell Road at Charlotte Drive. There was a 5th one, if you recall, on the T-2 list, and that was on Cumming Street by the Manning Oaks Elementary School. We've been working with Fulton County School. They are still working on where exactly they like to see it at. There's going to be some tweaks and modifications possibly, but we wanted to keep this project moving. So we're going to hold off on that one. We had 2 bids only, unfortunately. Accelerate was the low bid at $602,200.84. Wish we had more bids, but there's a lot of competition and products going out there. Accelerate is under contract with some other work in the city and has done a great job for us.
Thank you, sir.
One aspect of it's a 120-day contract with 30 days to start. So in other words, they have 30 days to complete the project once they start it. And so what we don't want them to do is be a locust and go from one spot to another spot and do some clearing. They're going to focus on one area, finish it up, and then go to the next spot. The biggest priority for us is Alfreda Elementary School before the start of school.
Excellent. Any questions from council on this item? Thank you, sir.
You.
Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
However, if you would like to come forward and speak on the award of bids for the mid-block crosswalk projects, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. I have a motion from council.
Yes, Mayor, I move to award ITB number 22-007 to Accelerate Construction LLC for the construction of 4 mid-block crossings for an amount not to exceed $602,200.84, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
I have a motion by Councilman Dorito and a second by Councilman Hypes, and that was for the award of ITB 22-007 to Accelerate Construction LLC for the construction of 4 mid-block crossings for an amount not to exceed $602,200.84, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents. Any discussion? Councilman Hypes.
Well, Director Pete, I just want to say thank you. This was voted on and approved back in November, and we're moving forward with projects to better our city with these T-SPLOST dollars here 5 months later. So your department obviously is doing a great job of taking care of our city and our T-SPLOST funds.
The engineers, Jeff, Sarah, Pam Bush, and Elaine Hawkins, they put their work to this, and John Holland getting the right of way. So it was a whole team effort.
Team effort by those public service employees.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. Councilman Hypes. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
He just wanted to savor the moment. That'll wrap up that item, and we'll move on to item C, which is the Wire and Wood Event Logistics, Marketing, and Sponsorship Sales. Director Rogers, I hope this is fun enough for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. Of course, this is a fun event. We're talking about Wire and Wood, our annual Singer-Songwriter Festival, the second weekend in October. We're asking tonight for approval of a 5-year comprehensive event, logistics, marketing, and sponsorship sales service contract with Premier Events not to exceed $30,500 per year. This particular contract allows for the Premier to do 3 things for us. One is to develop a strategy to plan and produce our Wire and Wood concert. The second is the marketing end of our Wire and Wood, and that's to handle all of the social media and engagement and promoting of the event. leading up to the event and after the event, and to handle the sponsorship sales of the wire and wood. There were 3 companies that submitted with this particular RFP, with Premier scoring the highest by far of those 3 events, and that's why we're recommending approval tonight. To give you a quick breakdown of that $30,500, $19,500 of that goes to events logistics, $10,000 of it goes to marketing the event, and then the sponsorship portion of it is when they sell a sponsorship, the city receives 80% of that sponsorship, and Premier Events will receive 20% of that sponsorship. Premier has set their own sponsorship level. Their goal is to reach $85,000 for this year, which would mean $68,000 would come back to the city of Alpharetta. I think that the water tower explanation of this particular contract, we'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from council on this item? Did a great job presenting. No questions from council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward and speak on the award of this item regarding wire and wood, now's your opportunity to do so. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that council award RFP number 22-114 to Premier Events for wire and wood event logistics, marketing, and sponsorship sales in an amount not to exceed $30,500, and to authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hives, second by Councilman Mitchell, and that was to approve the award of RFP number 22-114 to Premier Events for wire and wood event logistics, marketing, and sponsorship sales in an amount not to exceed $30,500, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Next item up is the resolution to authorize the use of eminent domain 4915 Tidewater Way. Ms. Eswine, do you mind explaining why this item is on here and how it came to be?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor. And in fact, I'll say that these comments apply to all of these eminent domain items, D, E, and F. So late last week, our office was asked to assist with the Mcginnis Ferry Road Widening Project, which has a deadline from GDOT of May 6th. So everything has to be certified to GDOT for the acquisition of the property by May 6th, which is this Friday. That leaves a pretty short turnaround time for getting things approved. So there were actually 19 parcels at issue that we received access to for the files on, I think it was actually after close of business on Thursday. And in going through the files, making sure that we were protecting the city as best we could, we noted that the title work on the parcels were a little older than we would have preferred. So the GDOT standard for title work for these types of projects is 6 months, and the title work was from 2020. And so we immediately on Friday morning asked for expedited title work to be completed, which resulted in us identifying some missing information or outdated information as to these 3 parcels for D, E, and F. And so the mayor and council, you've already approved resolutions authorizing the use of eminent domain as to these 3 properties. So these are just by way of updating, really. And it's fairly simple, where the husband in 2 of these cases owned the property outright and added the wife to the title. So that is just adding one person. So we're not talking about a purchase or replacement of an individual, simply adding someone to the title between 2020 and now. And because of the formality associated with condemnation and what we have to file and receive an order from the court back by Friday, it really requires some updates and an approval of a new resolution for you as to those 2. The third, the initial title work, for whatever reason, did not identify half an interest in the property. So it identified one property owner, but not the other half. The other half interest, and so that's what this is. And so really, in order to meet the GDOT deadline, Our team of condemnation attorneys is going to Fulton County to file in the morning to seek to get everything filed as to all of those 19 parcels and receive certification from the court so that we can submit that to GDOT in order for us to keep that funding. And so with that, if y'all have any questions, I can go ahead and read through. I know it's a lot to read through, and I'm happy to do it unless you have questions.
Thank you very much. And two people have corrected me and said I called you Holly.
Oh,
If I did, I apologize, because I did know your name was Molly.
good golly.
I wasn't sure about the S-wine part. So I just wanted to apologize.
No
'cause,
apology necessary.
We have met before, and I did recall that part of your name. But I wanted to bring it, because this is serious, for those on council that may not have had a chance to get updated this afternoon. This is something that was only brought to my attention this afternoon. It is certainly unusual for us to post an item on the agenda, but I had talked to City Administrator Bob Regas probably around 3, somewhere around that point, after I had gotten the note from Ms. Shapiro telling me that they were planning to add this to the addendum, the agenda, because of the timeliness and the pressing deadlines. So my advice to them at that point was, if we can postpone this to give the public more notice, we should, but I saw no harm in it going ahead and having this discussion publicly tonight. If we choose as a council to go ahead and move forward tonight, then we have that option. Or we can postpone this and have to reschedule something that will allow the attorneys to get this filed by Friday.
And just by way of clarification, it really needs to be filed tomorrow. It's not for filing by Friday. Unfortunately, with the condemnation proceedings, we have to file and then we wait for a judge to order and issue certain orders. So we're required to certify that we've gotten not just everything filed, but orders from the court by Friday. And so that's the reason for the time issue. So if, and that is up to the council, of course, but if you were to wait, that would really pose a problem for getting those parcels filed and receive what we need from the courts in order to certify on Friday.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilman Binder?
You're just asking for comments. I had the initial concern too, and I said, last minute agenda change, but given that it was for property that we've already voted on, and it's just a clerical change, I'm okay with it, doing it tonight, or I'm okay with waiting if that's the majority of council, but I'd be okay with doing it tonight.
Thank you, because once again, I was in the same position, and I wanted to give all of us an opportunity to give some thought to that and decide tonight whether we want to take up this agenda item. Any other discussion? If no one has any objections, then I will go ahead and call for discussion on this item. So this will be the resolution to authorize the use of eminent domain for 4915 Tidewater Way.
Mr. Mayor, we still have to read that resolution.
Yes, we do. I just wanted to identify the item since we are taking it up officially now, but thank you for reminding me. Never assume I'll get it right.
All right, so here I
We'll
go.
Holly, would
We'll
you
get Holly to
mind-
read the, no, I'm only kidding.
Would you mind reading the resolution, please?
Yes, thank you. A resolution of the mayor and the council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 4915 Tidewater Way, tax parcel number 215680-1034-0448 for road project Mcginnis Ferry Road widening from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway. Whereas the city of Alpharetta, the city, in conjunction with the city of Johns Creek and Forsyth County, has determined that it is necessary to construct a road project which includes the widening of and construction of other operational improvements to a portion of Mcginnis Ferry Road, such road being known as the Mcginnis Ferry Road from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway project, and whereas in order to construct the project, it is necessary to acquire certain rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the property now or formerly owned by Chong Fu Nugent and Ching I Wang, located at 4915 Tidewater Way, tax parcel number 215680-1034-0448, within the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, reference project parcel 30, as further described and as shown in attachment A, attached hereto and incorporated herein by this reference. And whereas the mayor and council have considered the project and determined that the project and the use of eminent domain to acquire those certain rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the foregoing property are necessary in the public interest and must be carried out expeditiously to ensure the timely completion of the project. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved by the mayor and the council of the city of Alfreda, Georgia, as follows. For public road purposes and to meet the public necessity for immediately acquiring the subject property rights which are hereby declared, the mayor and council authorize the city attorney's office to acquire through the use of eminent domain, pursuant to Title 32 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, the necessary property rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the property located at 4915 Tidewater Way, tax parcel number 215680 1034-0448, in order to ensure the timely completion of the project, Mcginnis Ferry Road from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway. Further, the mayor and the city administrator are specifically authorized to execute on behalf of and as if signed by every member of the governing authority of the city, the mayor and council, and any and all documents necessary to further the filing of any petition for condemnation or declaration of taking related to same or in furtherance of this resolution. So resolved today.
Thank you, Ms. Eswine. Any questions from council? If there's anyone from the public that would like to come forward and speak on this item, now's your opportunity. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. I have a motion from council.
Mayor, I move to approve a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Alfreda, Georgia, to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 4915 Tidewater Way, tax parcel number 21-5680-1034-044-8 for road project, Mcginnis Ferry Road widening from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Dorito and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. That was to approve the resolution of the mayor and council and that was supposed to be council. It says county. That's what I was going to. Resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Alfreda, Georgia, to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 4915 Tidewater Way, tax parcel number 21-5680-1034-044-8 for the road project, Mcginnis Ferry Road widening from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway, as read by City Attorney Molly Eswine. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Ms. Eswine, do you mind reading the next resolution?
All right, here goes. A resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 5065 Tidewater Way, Alpharetta, Georgia, tax parcel number 21-5680-1054-068-2 for road project Mcginnis Ferry Road widening from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway. Whereas the city of Alpharetta, the city, in conjunction with the city of Johns Creek and Forsyth County, has determined that it is necessary to construct a road project which includes the widening of and construction of operational improvements to a portion of Mcginnis Ferry Road, such road project being known as the Mcginnis Ferry Road from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway project, the project. And whereas in order to construct the project, it is necessary to acquire certain rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the property now or formerly owned by Oswaldo de Avicido and Sylvia P. Acevedo, located at 5065 Tidewater Way, tax parcel number 21-5680-1054-068-2, within the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, reference project parcel 46, as further described and shown as attachment A, attached hereto and incorporated herein by this reference. And whereas the mayor and council have considered the project and determined that the project and the use of eminent domain to acquire those certain rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the foregoing property are necessary in the public interest and must be carried out expeditiously to ensure the timely completion of the project. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved by the mayor and the council of the city of Alfreda, Georgia, as follows. For public road purposes and to meet the public necessity for immediately acquiring the subject property rights which are hereby declared, the mayor and council authorize the city attorney's office to acquire through the use of eminent domain pursuant to Title 32 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated the necessary property rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the property located at 50 5065 Tidewater Way, tax parcel number 21-5680-1054-068-2, in order to ensure the timely completion of the project, Mcginnis Ferry Road from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway. Further, the mayor and the city administrator are specifically authorized to execute on behalf of, and as if signed by every member of the governing authority of the city, the mayor and council, any and all documents necessary to further the filing of any petition for condemnation or declaration of taking related to the same and/or in furtherance of this resolution.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Any public comment? Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir. I move that we approve the resolution to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 5065 Tidewater Way, tax parcel number 21-5680-1054-068-2 for road project Mcginnis Ferry Road widening from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway.
We have a motion by Councilman Binder, a second by Councilman Mitchell, and that was to approve the resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 5065 Tidewater Way, as read by City Attorney Molly S. Wine. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Ms. Eswine, I believe we have one more item.
Yes, last one. A resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 5225 Mcginnis Ferry Road, Georgia, tax parcel number 21-5690-1100-0122 for road project Mcginnis Ferry Road widening from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway. Whereas the city of Alpharetta, the city in conjunction with the city of Johns Creek and Forsyth County, has determined that it is necessary to construct a road project, which includes the widening of and construction of other operational improvements to a portion of Mcginnis Ferry Road, such road project being known as the Mcginnis Ferry Road from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway project, the project. And whereas in order to construct the project, it is necessary to acquire certain rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the property now or formerly owned by Gary Bump and Chris Willett, located at 5225 Mcginnis Ferry Road, tax parcel number 21-5690-1100-0122, within the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, reference project parcel 75, as further described and shown in attachment A, attached here to, and incorporated herein by this reference. And whereas the mayor and council have considered the project and determined that the project and the use of eminent domain to acquire those certain rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the foregoing property are necessary in the public interest and must be carried out expeditiously to ensure the timely completion of the project. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved by the mayor and the council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, as follows. For public road purposes and to meet the public necessity for immediately acquiring the subject property rights which are hereby declared, the mayor and council authorize the city attorney's office to acquire through the use of eminent domain pursuant to Title 32 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated the necessary property rights to, in, over, under, through, and across the property located at 5225 Mcginnis Ferry Road, tax parcel number 21-5690-1100-0122, in order to ensure the timely completion of the project, Mcginnis Ferry Road from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway. Further, the mayor and the city administrator are specifically authorized to execute on behalf of, and as if signed by every member of the governing authority of the city, the mayor and the council, any and all documents necessary to further the filing of any petition for condemnation or declaration of taking related to the same and/or in furtherance of this resolution.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the council to approve a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 5225 Mcginnis Ferry Road, Georgia, tax parcel number 21-5690-1100-0122 for road project Mcginnis Ferry Road widening from Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Union Hill Road to Hospital Parkway.
Second. I have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Councilman Will, and that was to approve the resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire certain property located at 5225 Mcginnis Ferry Road, as read by City Attorney Molly S. Wine. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Thank you to everyone. That'll wrap up new business portion of tonight's meeting, and we will move on to the next portion, which is the workshop. The first workshop will be the presentation and discussion, recommended fiscal year 2023 budget, operations, and capital, while our finance staff. Oh, okay. Thought I'd called somebody the wrong name again. Before they begin, if I could, I just want to kind of explain how this process works for those who may be unfamiliar. So our staff begins working months ago, before this year even began, this calendar year even began, on priorities, projections for the budget in the upcoming fiscal year. And so after months of them working together with our directors and our leadership team, they present to me approximately 3-4 weeks ago what they are recommending in the budget. Now, it's listed as the mayor's recommended budget because in the charter I am the chief executive officer of the city, but I didn't want anybody to think that this is a budget that I personally crafted or actually influenced to a dramatic extent. For the most part, our staff brought their priorities, brought their projections of what our revenues were, and made recommendations on that. The only major change I would say that I made once it was presented to me is that I wanted to make sure that the budget reflected a $4.2 million commitment to stormwater repairs and maintenance. And so there were some adjustments made to do that. But other than that, this is pretty much reflective of what our administrative team has developed based on feedback from us at our retreat and from council in the past 12 months. So just wanted to let everybody understand that part and not think that I went home and drew up a bunch of numbers and told Tom what he had to show us tonight. Not that anybody here thought that, but somebody out there may. Just wanted to clarify. So, Director Harris, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If you should each have a presentation in front of you and also on the screen. The agenda, very much like the mayor mentioned, does start off with us talking a little bit about the recap of the budget process. And then some of the items we also talked about at the retreat is some of the strategic budget concepts that we'd like for the budget to at least discuss. And then we'll dive into the citywide budget. But primarily it'll be about the general fund and getting a feel about the revenues and expenses, not only in the base budget, but also the operating initiatives or the dollars that are set aside for any new initiatives and capital initiatives as well, and then the calendar. And then obviously any questions you guys have from the actual book itself, but this pretty much will walk through on a high level what's included in the budget book. As the mayor mentioned, generally we get a general idea. I tell you how last year's finishing, this year's going, and we get some feedback a little bit on some of the priorities at the retreat. For example, compression and some of those issues were starting to come up, and they're actually in the budget under an operating initiative. But then we work with departments, set a target budget with them. Generally, sometimes we may cut something out of the budget. We saw last year they didn't spend it and then provide something else in turn that they need to spend, but all within the context of that's generally the base budget. If it's something new or a new direction they're going into, we try to pull that off aside so that they can get council approval on should it be in the budget or not in the budget. So then February, we work on a detailed, they specifically as department heads fill out a very line item detailed budget. And again, the concept is to try to separate new initiatives from the base budget to the extent we can, and we'll show you a slide in a minute about all the expenditures, and you can sort of break it down on all the new initiatives that are being addressed or have been addressed even at this past mid-year. And then we start the budget meetings, and then we post the mayor's proposed budget. So tonight's workshop is to go over that and then hear any feedback and then find ways as a group to get it in the budget if there are changes. So strategically, some of the things we talk about is we obviously always want to maintain a competitive tax rate. We want to have a discussion about some of the homeowner tax savings that we have just to keep you guys apprised of what your homestead exemptions are doing. and then some service delivery things we've done over the last few years and going into this budget for staffing and compensation, and then the operational budget, the M&O things that you've approved this year, some of the high inflationary cost impacts that you've seen in contracts. That all affects our service delivery. And then we'll talk a little bit about our capital maintenance infrastructure program, where we have roughly $10 million easily every single year just for milling and resurfacing stormwater and fleet, and $5 million for other type items generally, somewhere around 13 to 15 million that we need every year sort of to feed the continuation of our assets. And then we also in our budgets want to make sure we have flexibility to respond to economic downturns. So on the maintain competitive tax rate, the chart's pretty, self-explanatory across the top. It's 5.75 mils. It stayed consistent. But if you look at the finer details between what is the blue, and that is the operating millage rate. That's how we pay for public safety and all of us sitting here today. And the red is for the debt. You'll see that the red spiked up between 2016 and 17. That's the issuance of the $52 million bond. So we pulled the millage rate down in the operating millage rate, moved it over to the debt millage rate so that we could pay for that bond. And we did the same thing this current year that we're going into for 2023. So the proposed millage rate for the operations would be going down from 4.935 down to 4.785, so that we can pick up the $1,650,000 principal and interest payment on starting on the bond, the $29 million Parks bond. Down below, we've seen this chart over the years, and it's just trying to say, when we compare ourselves, at least the operating millage rate, to cities around us, everybody does things a little differently. They may have a lower operating millage rate. They may not even have any bonds. They may not have bonds because some of their assets are, not being maintained. They may not have bonds because they've yet to recognize they want to, continue to put money into their parks or whatever. So you want to try to break it out between operations and capital, operations and debt service. And plus, you want to take into account that we've had a homestead exemption that far exceeds their homestead exemption. So when we do that based on a $475,000 value, you will see, first of all, we have all of our millage rates for operations, and we would be fourth if you wrote down a number next to 4.785. And then when we take into account our $45,000 homestead, though, we move to first in that scenario. And then it pretty much works first, second, third, fourth. The city's there when you take into account on a $475,000 home the impact of having that $45,000 homestead exemption. So for those that are at that value or less, they're coming out ahead, and it starts getting probably closer, or you could move ahead if your value is that much higher than that value. But it's just an idea of how we stand and stack up at running our government operations. The next slide is our homeowner tax savings. Right now, if we had to put a number to how much the floating homestead and the other homesteads amount to, it's $5.4 million annually savings. The floating homestead is about $2.1 million in savings for that, and the homestead 45,000 amounts to about 2.8 million in savings. That every single year. Thank you, sir. No, it's not the cat. I don't think. I think it's just outdoors. So, sorry about that. So those are them, and the senior, the floating homestead exemption only applies to the operating millage, and the basic homestead of 45,000 only applies to the operating millage as well, and then the seniors apply to both. But that's what we have right now. What I wanted to make a note of is that the floating homestead is already producing 2.1 million. That's $445 million in value that has been capped on homesteaded properties. So that right there is getting very close to the homestead exemption of the 45,000, and it soon will surpass that as being, especially if values keep going up. And that's just to recall that the value of a homestead property can only go up by the lesser of, by the greater of 3% or, no, lesser of 3% or CPI. So, next is personnel, just some reminders. In 2020, we did a public safety comp plan update. There was the merit program was suspended and then reinstituted in 21 because of COVID-19. We did the class and comp. We did the one-time compensation payout. Then we did a performance-based merit of 3%. In 22, we had the merit again on July of last year, beginning of this fiscal year. And then, as you recall, in November, and part of our mid-year budget amendment, we gave a 13% to police and E911 and a 3% to all other employees. And there was a first responder supplemental grant of $1,000 that through the state we gave to our first responders. So in 23, as we look into this budget, there is another performance-based merit program of 4% budgeted to be able to take effect on July 1st, 22, and a salary compression adjustment of $825. That is shown in an operating initiative. But that's that. And then the next thing on, well, continue that to some extent, is the staffing needs. In 22, we added the Quint staffing. We had to get 6 firefighters. We transferred the 3 people from the DEA back over to general fund and outside of not being funded by the grant anymore. We started unfreezing the positions in public works, IT, and community development. And then again for next year, the recommended, again, shown in operating initiatives and not in the base budget, is public safety, 2 FTEs, community paramedic and crime scene detective. HR is asking for an HR specialist, and rec in Parks and Culture Services is looking for staffing for Preston Ridge Community Center. M&O, some of these drivers that you'll notice in the base budget, if you've been through it a little bit, is, and if you remember at mid-year, significant increases in the M&O of 1.1 million, which is about 6.4%, which actually is not that high considering the impacts that some contracts have had on us. The landscape maintenance contract went up by $500,000. Facility grounds maintenance up $133,000. We've increased travel training, and IT investment has gone up, as you see those numbers there. So overall, we are able to maintain some of the cost to the extent we can, but we've clearly had drivers that are noted in those 3 things. The next slide is, now we're getting a little bit into what we always want to talk about, is that, and I know the number keeps changing, it's because we are growing as of the assets that we continue to take on under us with parks and everything else, is a minimum target of $13 million. We're probably looking every year you're going to spend $13 to $15 million just maintaining the assets you own. So what I have there is the boxes that this year we did 14.7, next year 14.6, specifically to recurring type capital items. But the funding source is what I want to talk about. In the 2022 budget, we only had 1.7, and we're trying to come up with a proper term so we always understand it, of funding coming from a budgeted line item, capital appropriation. I'll just call it that. That's what we're appropriating in the general fund, part of the paid for out of the revenue streams that the general fund gets. The other is that a process that we've done for before I got here is any of the surplus beyond the emergency reserve, we plow back in after the audit is done back into the next fiscal year's capital program. That is your fund balance dollars. So in that year, we had 5.8 million going into 22. And the rest came from ARPA, the relief dollars, and that. And we knew that. That was part of what was going to happen. In 23, because I was way too conservative on numbers that are coming back with how fast low cost of sales tax, I said, came back in 22, in fiscal year ending 21, we're going to have 11.6 million of fund balance. That's from the 21 fiscal year that we finished last year. And now we've upped that capital appropriation up to $3 million. That was our plan. We would go up each year to try to get it up, and I'll get the next slide in a minute, or to the right, you can see what we're trying to do. So, bottom line is, we have a needs of 13 million. We try to get 50% of it in a line item. Like years ago, we had I think 4.8 or $5 million we had appropriated in a line item. Just as important as paying for supplies and paying for somebody is a line item, trying to keep up with fleet replacement and everything else. And that was $5 million. The other 5 was coming from fund balance, $5, $6, $7 million from fund balance, so you could keep up with 10, 12 million. That line item was decreased with the thought that we would need it to cover other things in the budget. And we've now got it back up to $3 million up as a line item. Luckily, we have a big fund balance value that's coming over from last year. But you'll see in a minute in the slide, that's not our normal projection to drop, even though this year we're going to drop a good significant number as well. You generally the history shows we're not that conservative in our budgeting other than these 2 years during this time period where we thought the revenues would sort of not do quite as well as they have and not come back as fast as they have. We're still not all the way back with hotel motel, but local option sales taxes. All the predictions were that we would certainly see hits, and every time we go, it just keeps going up. And same with some of the taxes on motor vehicles as well, because the prices of motor vehicles went through the roof. So, but that's it. So the next page, you've all seen this slide before, where we try to just demonstrate what we're trying to do. In our budget, as we all sit here and adopt the budget, that's what we're trying to do. So the gold across the top, or yellow, whatever you want to look at, is at 13 million. The red is the line item, and I put that at the bottom, and I put it at 3 because that's what we're funding next year as a budgetary item, as a line item. And you'll see in a minute, we try to estimate as much of the revenue growth and get it back into the budget, but we got to cover a lot of things in our budget now to get back those frozen positions, to get back the 13% raise we gave, to get back to cover the compression next year. So the question is, do I have the revenue numbers now much more in line? I believe I do, and we'll go through that in a minute. So if we do that, the only appropriation I can afford in the budget next year is $3 million for that. But again, we're going to have 12.6 from our fund balance from the year before. This year, projection-wise, we'll probably have another good year and have another fund balance drop, so that when we do the 2024, we would have 10 million in there. I left the 3 red so that you understand that it's our goal to raise it, I believe, to 4.5 next year, to 5, to 6.5, 7 over the next few years. My belief is our projections will tell us we can do that. But if next year we want to take on, do some other priorities, then that may suffer at trying to get that back up there. But so I just left it flat for now, so you can see the goal is to get it up towards the purple or whatever color you want to call that. So we're good. We're on the right track. We had to drop it down to nothing theoretically, but we dropped it all theoretically, drop back down to fund balance, so that funds it. But when you got to budget something, it's much harder to do than just relying on it drop to the bottom line. It means you have to fight off something else that you want to raise or try to get it in the budget. And again, we can talk about how conservative that budget is and whether or not it could get more there. But either way, again, the goal is down the road. I think we had a goal, Hypes, we thought a few years ago, and we had this chart, 2 to 3 years, we could get that number back up. So given that every year we generally, unless we see a recession, that we're going to see revenues, again, we got to cover raises, we got to cover everything every year. Then you got to have new money above that to go, okay, that 3 can go to 4.5. That 4.5 can go to 6. I think we can do that. It will compete with some new initiatives, but I think if we do 1.5 a year, we can get that number up in the next 2 years to be the number we'd like it to be, 50% of the recurring capital in a line item. And it's a great tool to have, because if you go into budgetary recessions or something else, again, that's the first thing, as we did last time, it's the first thing you cut, just to make sure you're not cutting people or cutting something out of the budget. So hopefully that helps. And now we're going to turn into the budget itself. And we could have a lot of slides on this, so generally we're going to get into just the general fund, but I'll try to explain going around the pie chart from the general fund. This is a $152 million total budget, but I'll tell you the components so you have a better understanding of what makes that up. The general fund makes up $91 million. That includes the fund balance of 12.6 that we're bringing in from the, above the emergency reserve as we finished last year, 2021. So if you compared that to last year, you'll see in a minute, last year was 71.4. This year, if you backed out the fund balance, would be 78.5. You're up 9.9%. We'll show a chart on that in a minute. You'll see we're up 9.9%, which means that's a large recapture of the revenues we think we weren't capturing these last 2 years, because that's probably the most significant revenue increase I've ever probably had in my career, is 9.9% of catching up to the budget. So that's the general fund. We'll dive into more detail in a minute. Special revenue funds, these are these funds by state law we got to sort of separate. We got the E911 fund, which is $5.5 million. No big change there, maybe up about 7% between the use of $1.50 on your phone or your mobile phone or landline. And then we have an impact fee fund. We're bringing $2 million in to cover, I believe, the Greenway connection project. Then we have the hotel motel fund. That's $7.5 million. So that's back up, is getting back up. It's, again, it's $7.5 to $8 million I think we'll get next year. But it was on pace to be about a $9.2 million fund, and it's right before COVID hit. And so it's still got some ways to go, but it's covering the 8 pennies. It gives the monies to the city, it gives the money to ACVB, and it gives the money to cover the convention center hotel, and it's doing that. Next is debt service funds. That's the millage rate going over there. We have about $100 million of GO bond debt that's got to be paid out of that $6.6 million. That's an increase of about $1,650,000 from the year before because of the new bond. Capital project funds, this is where we take all that fund balance in the general fund plus the $3 million and we transfer it over to capital project fund. So that's where you have to spend those monies, is over in the capital projects. And as you know, 90-something% of that gets appropriated through this process, and we sit on an unallocated balance, sometimes about $2 million in that fund. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but it gets all appropriated, and so we'll talk about those projects in a minute. The enterprise fund, that's just your Republic sanitation contract. Their contract's going up 4%. The rate we're passing on to residents, as we mentioned in the past, because we have to make up for last year, is closer to 20%. But that hike, as far as the budget, is only a 4% hike because we were using fund balance of that fund to cover it. Last is internal service funds. We sort of pull out aside the medical insurance fund to pay all our claims. So the money comes from the general fund, goes over this fund, and that way we can pay our claims and pay our insurances, et cetera. So no big change in those regards. Positions are over to the right from a funded position, not from the new initiatives. Funded in the base budget, we're down 1 position. That's due to courts. Again, the other positions I talked about for HR, 2 for police, that they're in a new initiative concept for you all to vote on or sort of talk about separately from the base budget. So the next slide is that revenue comparison where I showed you at the bottom line that they're up 9.9%. Significant increases at trying to get caught up on our revenue projections. The first one, though, out of the box, you'd say, well, current year property taxes looks a little low at only 2.5%, but we broke out to the right what we think that represents. And you got to keep in mind, even though we put it as the 4th bullet point, it's really the first bullet point. You had to shift 1.15 mils to cover the bonds. So when you pull that out, you give a 7% growth in residential valuations. And let me go through that for a minute. So you got homesteaded properties probably represent close to 75% of our properties in theory. Then they could sell and you get different ones, but yeah, about 75%. So they're only going to go up by 3%. Okay. Then you have technically you have the non-homesteaded properties, people that are just in properties, it's their second home and something. So let's say 15%. If that 15% goes up another 10 to 15%, which I think they could because that's the value increase last year, probably about a 20% in values I think in Alpharetta. I don't know that completely just by reading materials. So the assessor's office usually doesn't jump up and grab that on day one. It usually gets but if we used 10 to 15% for that, and then the 10% of the residential properties, let's say they sold. And let's say because now they sold, they're going to pick up all the remaining, the cap, the floating homestead cap, because the new home's going to come in now and that homestead cap is gone. So let's say they went up between 30 and 40% on that 10%. That puts you right about a 7% overall value increase. So maybe 7 to 8, somewhere in that range. So we don't think it's that far off. The problem is only showing 2.5 is because you got to pull out for the bond. So hopefully that makes some sense. And the biggest part of our valuation is 62% commercial, and they're only going up by 2%. We could go up greater. This is the one really more of the unknown is the commercial, because whether or not rents are being redone at lower rates after COVID or not, we're hearing both things. So I got a call into the assessor's office, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. He can tell us if there's something earth-shattering from our thoughts. So if I do, we'll bring that forward. But after that, you can start seeing, look at motor vehicle tax. That's the new title tax. That's a 66% increase. We're going to put that back up to $3 million. This year, we're on pace to get about 2.8. Again, that's because vehicles have been in need, and they're very pricey right now if you've been out in the market to buy a truck especially. So we're going to count on that. It continues to go, and we're picking that revenue up. Local option sales tax. Pre-COVID, I remember we were going to be, I just remember these numbers for some odd reason, 17.4 million. We're now proposing next year's budget is 18.9 million. That's how much growth has been going on, and we didn't expect that. I'm just laughing at Councilman Binder for a reason there, but on the local option sales tax was unexpected to some extent. So that, again, we're pumping the revenues up $2.6 million. We can go through these a little bit more. Alcohol is a good thing during some of these times, and that's going up $550,000. So at the end of the day, that's in the hotel motel tax down below, I'm picking up $750,000 more to pick up our share of that. So that's it. At the bottom, we show the carry forward fund balance between 1 year and the next. Can just be a myriad of how you finish that year.
Have any of the major or sizable commercial projects that were under a tax abatement, are they being realized? I believe Avalon had a deal at one point.
Yeah, Avalon has them. Each year, we're going to pick up 5% more.
And at what point do some of these larger commercial assemblages start to pay in at 100%?
It takes 10 years, so it's 5% a year appreciation that we pick.
So Avalon opened phase 1 in 2015. So we're in year 7 going on 8.
Yeah, I would probably say on the assessor's office, nowhere near that. The assessor doesn't put it on into the last, in those days, because we didn't have our agreements, weren't that tied down, they don't go on until the last person basically moved in. There's no TCO. It's got to be completely certificate of occupancy issued on the building. And that's well after, in many cases, after. That's not how we try to write the documents now, but that was the case then. So I don't think they're that far along. I have a schedule I can provide. It's provided to Development Authority recently of where we are on each of these projects.
How will that impact your future trends in future years, if at all? Maybe it's not enough money to even have a discussion about, or maybe it's a significant sum. I don't know.
Slowly, you just get 5% a year, because they're going to get assessed at 50% in year 1, so you're already getting 50, and then you're going to get 5 each year. So there's no major drop-off. Let's say in year 10, go, wow, you're going to pick up something great. You just pick up the additional 5.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? So we do, what I just did fail to mention, we do have new construction at 100 million. We try to track the ones that are 100 million, then that's 40% of the actual digesting. The fair value would be divide that by 0.4. So those are the numbers. Again, big significant increases. I would say probably feel pretty comfortable with all of them except for maybe the commercial side, maybe slightly on the residential side of taxes. And we'll get that in usually July, August. On the expenditure side, what we try to do on the right side of the schedule, if you can read it, it gets pretty detailed. We try to move from the base and literally line item each of the things separately. So they become part of the base, but if we can just show you transparency-wise what changed from what to what. So we had the base budget, so next year we got a 4% in there. So it's going to be up 4.3. And then you start going down each of the major changes. You had the personnel compensation, you had the unfrozen positions that you see there, the 6 and the 1, and when you had some movement in a solicitor up above and below. First responders, you're not going to get that money again for the federal government, so it won't be in that line item, so we remove it. So you can just see that ultimately you end up with that number of $53.9 million. Again, compression is not in there. The new positions that are proposed are not in there. They're under a concept of new initiatives down below. So you can see those changes when you go into the M&O. You can walk through that as well. We're not giving the base M&O much love, but then you get into we saved money on the elections. You can recall the landscape maintenance ROL. We're going up to $675,000 for the right-of-way. That contract was before you as council. That's up $276,000. Landscape maintenance up $225,000. Down below, the IT I mentioned, some cloud storage, security, software, and then we also allocated some department costs that are in our department, driving down our base M&O over to them, over to IT professional services. So that's it. At the end of the day, the operating expenses are up 5.7% compared to the operating, to the 5.7% overall. And with that plug that difference between the page before and the revenues, and you have $1.7 million for new initiatives. And then again, then the next is just the capital. The capital we contribute $3 million is a line item, and the 12.6 is coming from fund balance. So now we're into the operating.
Councilman Binder?
Just quickly on the expenses, the M&O. I know we've just renegotiated several of our contracts, and they've raised with the inflation environment we're seeing today. Do you think we're pretty buffered for that within our contracts that we have, or
going into next year?
Going into next year?
I think so. I think we built some of the buffer in. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but I think for the most part, these numbers reflect that in there. So
we've recently bid out most of our major contracts,
so like
you see here.
Yep.
We've got some good news though. We got janitorial in. We're still doing that review, but we're not seeing anywhere near the inflationary cost growth that we did on these landscape items. So most of our very labor-intensive contracts have recently come up for bid and are included in the 2023 budget. So, thank you.
Councilman Will.
Real quick, what does a contingency line mean?
Under our budget ordinance, we have a 1%, just 1% held in the general fund just to make sure you're not off. It's been an old budgetary ordinance requirement to just hold 1% aside. So at least that number's most likely going to drop to the bottom line.
So it's not allocated, it's just, we got 700 grand just in case.
Correct.
Creek rises and.
Correct.
Thanks.
While we're at it, I noted you mentioned that, there's budget for the salary compression issues, the adjustments there, and I think all of us have anticipated that. Do we have any idea when council's going to see that plan?
I think we're getting pretty close. It's really broken into two sections to some extent, with general employees and public safety. It's slightly different, but the whole model still being a concept of trying to handle compression. I think in the next few weeks we should be able to start bringing up, at least up to speed.
Well, I know this isn't just you. This is a team that's been working together, but I just wanted to state that I'm supportive of the initiative, but before I'm expected to vote on spending that budget item, I'd like to see what that's going to look like. Councilman Wood?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the only thing we're waiting on is validation of the data. So we have a team of people that are checking hire dates and checking merit dates, and I think that's where we are. Once we get the data validated, then we'll have a final. Don't want to put it before you and then say, by the way, our data's wrong.
No, and I know Ms. Randall has explained that to me. I just starting to get close to that time frame. So I think the sooner you can get it to the rest of council, the better off we'll be as far as addressing any concerns in the number that's attached to it. But just wanted to get that out there.
Absolutely.
Thanks, sir.
So the next slide is the operating initiatives as proposed. We have $1,725,000, as I mentioned, revenues over expenses. After we cover everything, base budgets, all that stuff we talked about, including a $3 million transfer for capital, then the operating budget produces $1,700,000, and $1,395,000 has been earmarked in this proposed budget for right now for these type things. We mentioned 4 positions are embedded there between human resources, 2 in public safety, and that. And at the end of the day, there's still $330,000 to weigh against the other initiatives that are on the following pages. And I don't generally go through them, but they're attached, and you see them in your presentations, and there's details in the budget document, as you can tell on the page book here, where pages define those operating initiatives and what they are and what they represent. You can reach out to department heads, et cetera, and then we can have those discussions about bringing them in. And then we move on to the capital, and again, it's the same concept, a little bit left to right reading here. You got the sources up top, so it's always key to remember that you'll see sometimes we got some terms that get you a little messed up, but in the capital project fund itself, because it's got unallocated, you'll see in our monthly reports, $2.5 million. We're going to bring that back in the budget, bring it before you right here and say we have $2.5 million in that capital project fund. That's not earmarked for a capital project right now. We have the general fund that's going to go all the way to the right. It's going to provide $12.6 million. I just happened to put some of it in stormwater, not in the capital project fund, because we want to fund the 4.2 of the stormwater. But there's the 12.6. That's the fund balance of the general fund's fund balance. That's why it says general fund, the available fund balance. The capital appropriations, $3 million. We have it going over to stormwater, 6 of one, half a dozen others going to stormwater as opposed to the capital project fund, because it's going to be used for recurring capital, in this case, stormwater. And sometimes we just like to use different funds, whatever. But at the end of the day, we're showing you all the sources of funds and where it's going. So, and then the available fund, again, for each of those respective funds, E911 has very little funds, but it's bringing $330,000 to do the notice at the stations, the fire alarm. Yeah. The impact fee fund is funding, I think, as I mentioned, possibly the, and you can, it's all in the detail, but it's going to help fund the I can't think of anything right now, the Encore Parkway connection to the Greenway.
Encore Greenway Park connection. Split 2 funding sources. You've got impact fees.
And T-SPLOS.
You've got impact fees funding the park component of that project. Then you've got T-SPLOS funding the transportation, sort of actual walkway portion of that project.
So all that's in there, in more details when you read the descriptions, but at the end of the day, you have a $25.5 million capital program, and then in this case, we do it by departments, but you can see in your budget document, it gets more into whether it's recurring or not, and all that, and then ultimately, we allocate it all out, leaving $2.8 million in the capital project fund, again, untouched, so that, again, you're leaving some capital project dollars powder dry, as the mayor sometimes we say in the past, that could be used for any of these projects that you see on the attached pages, or just left at 2.7. But it could also fund the unfunded list you'll see in a minute, and go that, or you could pull something from funded over to unfunded, unfunded over to funded. But at the end of the day, what's before you about the capital improvement plan is all of it has a name and an earmarked project in the attachments, but $2.8 million.
Councilman Hypes?
For clarity, is the 2.8 million existing dollars in this budget that have been carried forward from prior years, or is this a projected $2.8 million?
That's next year's projected 2.8.
That-
It's the end product of all those carry forwards of real dollars that I'm bringing into the budget, and then the uses. And so it's going to, next year's budget, you have $2.8 million.
Okay.
You don't have that on top of the 2.5 million we have above. You have 2.8.
And the things that would affect that $2.8 million projection as being higher or lower would be?
There'd be no impact technically. Yeah, the number's solid is based on capital. Hard dollars are being brought into the fund and allocating all that project list that attach here, all $22 million project. If you approve those 22, nothing's going to change those numbers. Those numbers are there.
Thank you.
Councilman Will?
So the 2.8 million is after the 2023, but this is June of 2024.
This is for next year's budget. No, this is for next year's budget. You can spend every penny of that
June of 2023. When we get to the end of the
Nope,
June.
nope,
Okay.
nope, July 1. This is your budget.
The 2.792.
Correct.
It's going to be left over. That's left over after we finish fiscal year 23.
It's there now in this projection, just like unallocated in the general fund.
What you questioned, right? So it is there now.
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay, so it is there now. This is, I think, the confusion. So 2.792 is there now.
Let me,
Okay.
it's not there now. 2.5 is there today, up above, 2.5. Fund balance, today. You guys are making a decision how to spend 25.5 million. Not me, that's in all these attached pages. 22 million of them, you'll sign a document in June saying, we're gonna spend 22.7 million. You may jump that up another 2.7 million and not leave a penny in that 2.7. That's up to you in your budget.
Okay, so that's what, the 2.5 is there now. At the end of 23, a year from now, it'll be 2.792.
If you don't touch it.
If we don't touch it.
Yep.
Okay, now how does that play into, as I recall, the 12.6 plus the 3 that we're going to generate in 2023 that we will also have available to push into these?
Well, the 12.6 is coming in today.
We got that, that's today, and we're
That's
pushing it
today.
in.
There's another 10 million that we think this year, it will go into the 2024. The 10 million will go into the 2024 budget.
And you're saying in 2023, we'll generate an additional $12 million, which will go into the
No,
following year's budget?
No, will not. That's what that slide showed. Our fund balance will start slowing down. We will not produce another 12. We're producing probably 7 to 8.
Okay.
We need to come up with another 7 to 8 from that 3 million.
So where does that 7 to 8 that we'll have figure into that 2.7? Is that
We
going to be
don't
in
bring
addition
it,
to it?
yeah. We don't bring it into the discussion of this year's budget.
So it'll show up into we'll have the money, but it's not showing up here. We'll have the money, but it'll be in 2024's budget.
Correct. We believe technically we have $10 million that we're going to drop today, this fiscal year. And I could probably go back to that one slide, that may help.
I just want to clarify that,
Yeah.
that when we get to the end of fiscal 2023, we're not only going to have 2.7, we're going to have 2.7 plus whatever money we have left over in the budget, plus
Whatever
money
we have
can
in
save.
fund balance, plus
It will be
whatever you're making a
significantly higher.
commitment to contribute to that recurring capital.
That then goes to the following year. but
Correct.
It's not we just have the 2.7.
Correct.
We're broke.
So, and if I could, just to clarify a little bit, this unallocated 2.7 is to give us the opportunity, if something were to come up, we can spend it.
It's the projected excess after the 2023 fiscal year is done.
Well, that's why I wanted to clarify. I wouldn't personally consider this a projected balance to be left over. It is the likelihood of us having unintended capital costs incurred over the next 12 months is pretty likely.
Okay, that's why I call it projected. If nothing gets touched, it'll be there.
It would be,
Yeah.
but yes, but it's kind of like a reserve account. So if we have a vehicle that gets demolished and we have to replace it, or, okay. I just didn't want to everybody to keep in mind that this will be left over at the end of the 12 months. It may be if we choose not to spend it, but there may be things, and there likely will be things that'll come up that we may want to use some of those funds, if not all.
Got it.
Councilman Hyde.
The discussion's actually been helpful for me. If we pass the budget, we're agreeing to these expenditures down below.
Correct.
And the revenues that are up on top, those, if I'm hearing this more closely, these aren't just projected revenues, these are solid revenues.
Solid.
So these are given revenue numbers and given expense numbers, and if we pass this budget, we're just going to have $2.8 million left over because these are given numbers.
Correct.
All right. I wasn't,
Other than the grant, but we feel the grant's good, and you wouldn't spend the project if you didn't get the grant, you know, it's sliding, but overall, that's accurate. And that's why we bring in the fund balance from the audited year before versus the one we're projecting to get this year, because we don't pull that out until the next year. Because technically, on July 1 of this year, I could transfer that 12.6. I don't, because it's just better to keep it in the general fund throughout the year. But you're allocating me and telling me to take 12.6 of our fund balance in general fund and move it over to fund these projects. I could move it on July 1. Then you'd only be sitting in fund balance, emergency reserve, in this year's projected 10 million. And that would probably cause issues, because if we ever try to dump into that 10 million, you want to get it audited and then bring it into the next year, if that makes sense.
it does make sense. Thank you.
If there's no other questions, please proceed.
That's it, other than the list of the attachments. If you go to the next one, I guess we have them all. Start going through them, and there's details, and a lot of times at our next meetings, as you know, since capital is extensive, and we do a lot of capital here in the city and trying to maintain all these assets, that's where a lot of the questions come up at the next workshop. I do want to turn your attention to the calendar, which is on slide 33, and the goal is to have the workshop on the 16th and then have our first public hearing on the 23rd. So you will see over to the right that we will start running our ads for publication on May 12th. The ads, including a tax increase ad.
Since you mentioned that, could you go ahead and explain for those that may not be aware why we have to advertise a tax increase, although we're not raising the millage rate?
The state law is that if your valuations increase in the year and you get more, your digest grows up, and we're not talking about new construction, we're just talking about revals. If it goes up at all, then you need to proportionately or pro rata lower the millage rate by the same amount, so that you don't generate any new revenue on that value increase other than new construction. And since that, we expect to see, as I mentioned, that there's a 7% and that in 2% in the commercial, that we are going to project to see an increase, that we're not quite lowering the millage rate in the general fund, at least enough to fully offset that. That's one issue. So you have to advertise it, and we've been doing it for years every time we do this, because if there's any value increase, and the logic of that, which is completely illogical from my standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, it's good for the taxpayer because it tells them you're going to have a tax increase even though your millage rate didn't go up, is that's saying that if you try to roll back every year, that's called rollback, you roll back your millage rate, then you're going to cover next year's salaries with new growth. You have no new revenues to cover the current employees you have, salary increases or CPI, because you had to lower your millage rate to keep up with state law and then advertise in the paper to lower that millage rate so you don't collect 1 penny on revals. So where are you getting your money from? You're either getting it from other taxes that went up, or you're getting it from new construction. So new construction, which should pay for a new officer or a new fire truck or something, or an improvement in services, now has to be used just to maintain your budget. So it's a great concept to put you all on notice that when you touch that millage rate, or you should lower that millage rate, the state came up with a way to tell you you have to advertise this. But it's not really strategically how you would, I would think, normally want to run your government. But with that said, the second part is the ads are such that if you don't get it within a threshold accurate and you had a tax increase of any amount, but you didn't accurately say in that range how much it was going to be, then you'd have to do the whole process all over again. You have to do these hearings and that all over again. So the ad you'll see in the paper will be a little bit slighter than what we would normally think because we're trying to hedge ourselves so we don't have to run the ads. But it won't be anything alarming. I think it's $25, somewhere in that range for an average homesteaded property. And it should be less than that when this is all said and done, but we just have to advertise it that way.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Dorito?
Mayor Gillen, thank you. Tom?
Sure.
Really one question for you. The unfunded operating initiatives, I think you said we'll discuss those in more detail at the next workshop, correct?
Any time, yeah, now or between.
There's about $2 billion of unfunded initiatives right now. So what you're saying is we need to determine if we want to fund those, and if so, where is the funding coming from? Is that
correct?
Kind of summing it up?
Correct. On the
Okay.
capital side, you could swap something out, or you could say, bring it in and take it out of the 2.9.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, Mayor, a question for you. On the jail operations, under the recommended operating initiatives, $200,000, I'm assuming we're going to have some sort of presentation on the jail situation at some point to understand the cost and everything.
Thank you for bringing that up. For those of you that may not have heard, the Fulton County Commission on Wednesday morning is supposed to take up the issue of reopening the jail here in Alpharetta. It's an agenda item. On Wednesday, there is a proposal for the county to fund the reopening of that facility, which we certainly are supportive of as a city, and most of the cities in North Fulton are. So once we have clarity on that, hopefully on Wednesday, that'll help us better decide whether those funds are appropriate or not. But thank you for mentioning that. I'd forgotten to do so. And I'll also mention, just because you had talked about the operating initiatives and the monies that are in there, operating initiative funds could also be used for recurring capital if we chose to use. Can't go the other way around, because capital are one-time items, and I mean, initiatives are, from all intents and purposes, in perpetuity. But if we chose to, those could be flipped the other side and used to increase for a capital project if we wanted to. Any other questions? Councilman Mitchell.
It's concerning that. So by the 16th, should we know what the capital component amount would be? The amount that's listed is to be determined after we hear from Fulton County?
On the jail?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, on the capital component. Yes.
Specifically on the jail.
That's going back to the mayor's point. Sometimes this stuff can come up later, and now you got to fund it.
Right.
And there's some of these other operating initiatives too that weren't funded on the operating side too have a capital component. So if over the next few weeks we say we want to move in officers or something else and they have a capital component, then I got to take the capital. We got to work that in. But it's right now you have 2.9 on the capital side to deal with that, or you could move something else and give yourself more room to deal with TBDs down the road by taking some project out of the capital project list. So.
Okay. And there's one project under the unfunded. Overall, I'm real pleased with the budget. I think it's reflective of what we discussed at the retreat, and especially putting money into the stormwater system. But the Security Operations Center, I know Adam Montgomery's here tonight, but Randy Bundy would be back next week. But that's something of concern to me, because especially given today's climate of having cyber attacks, and even when the president's talking about cyber attacks coming into the U.S., currently we have no 24-hour supervision of that. That means we're going 16 hours every day, and the next morning we might figure out that we've been targeted as a city. And so this would address that, but that's something I'd like for us to at least consider in more greater detail. It's a $200,000 a year commitment, but okay. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Well, I just want to commend staff once again. It's been tumultuous few years, the past few years. And so hopefully things are starting to become a little more consistent and easier for y'all to do. But we do have new council members, and I really appreciate the efforts of your staff, the new council members, as well as specifically Councilman Will and Councilman Binder, who have been very active and engaged in this process to help make it go as smoothly as possible. So hopefully we'll continue to do so. Thanks, sir.
Thank you all. Thanks.
So that'll wrap up the workshop for the recommended budget of 2023, and we'll move on to the 2021 bond project. Parks update. Morgan Rogers, time to liven it up with some fun.
What's more fun than the budget? You know, with Tom doing such an excellent job of explaining all that to us so that we understand the budget very well now. So I'm here tonight because 6 months ago, the citizens of Alpharetta passed a bond referendum. So my commitment at that time was that every 6 months I'm going to report to this board as well as the Recreation Commission on the update of how we're doing on those projects. So this is just the first of a series where we're just going to let everybody know how we're doing on all of the bond referendum items. And as you can see on the chart, there are 9 total bond referendum items. I'm going to give you an update on 8, and then I'm going to ask Director Pete to come up and do the Alpha Loop one because that one falls under his jurisdiction. So the first one we have is the Broadwell Park that we're talking about tonight. That's obviously the piece of property that was bought in 2016 with the bond referendum, and we're going to finish that park development by adding some amenities, parking area, some trails, playground, hook up the restroom, and make that park doable or playable, if you will. And we are waiting on the plans. 100% of the construction plans are due back to us on May the 13th, and at that point in time, we will be able to bid that project out. This is what the schematic. No, this is the design of the park itself. You can see the parking to the left, the white area, the big green area in the middle that's marked 5. That's where the playground is, and then they have the various amenities throughout the park. Any questions about Mid-Broadwell?
Any questions? Councilman Binder?
Just quickly, and I'll probably have for every one of them. This one specifically, I've received a couple suggestions, let's call them, about, right now it's kind of been in a construction work in progress. What's the time frame between now and construction would start? Hypothetically,
well, we're going to get back the plans on May the 13th. We are going to, we'll have to evaluate those plans and see. We're assuming that we're going to do a design build, so we'll be able to go to, not a design, a straight bid, and be able to go to construction immediately. Okay. And we are hoping to have this particular project under construction by the end of this year, with the idea that we're going to finish in the first quarter of next year.
Perfect. If there's any delay, just maybe consider taking out some of the construction zone in the frontage, just so people can use it.
We'll do that in the middle of the night, but we'll make sure that
if it is at all possible. If it's not, I just
yeah, we'll take a look at that. The next project is the Webb Bridge Park soccer field, where we're taking the large natural grass area that is known as the upper field at Webb Bridge and making that artificial turf, because for most years we're losing between 60 and 70% of the games and the practices on the area due to lack of drainage. We are currently waiting on the geotechnical study for that particular project. The restroom that sits just below that or on the same level as that field is under septic tank, and it is not on the sewer. Currently the field lines are underneath the field that we're playing on, so we're waiting on the geotech study to see where we can either put another septic tank or redo those field lines. So just don't have an answer exactly what we're going to do on that until we get those back. We do continue to remain, the cost is a concern. We have $1 million for that project, and we'll have to work hard to get that under that threshold. But I'll keep when we get that geotechnical study back, we'll be able to give you more information. Oh, any questions on Webb Ridge? Waters Road Park, that's located at the corner of Waters Road and Kimball Bridge. It's a small 1.6 acre. Again, that was purchased with the 2016 bond referendum. We've had public meetings of that, so we are currently, we have our request for proposals out, and that went out, no, sorry. We've had our public meetings on that, and let me flip through and show you. This is where we had the public input from Waters Road, and you can see this is a, basically a verbal a rendering of what all of the input came. The walking, playground, picnic, the bigger the word, the more it was called for in that. So we're going to go back to here, and we've had the survey done, and currently we are working on a project narrative to go through Sourcewell. Sourcewell is a competitive, it's a qualified competitive bid source through the state of Georgia, and we're looking to go straight into design with that particular project on Sourcewell. Any questions on that? You can see that this was the original design. This is not the current design. This was the design that we have here. Is just showed what we use going into the public input meeting. So this is going to change when we go with the design company. And then once we go with the design company, this particular drawing will come back to Mayor and Council for approval. So we won't build a park until you've seen what the design is going to look like at that particular park. Next on the list is the Farmhouse Heritage Park. It's a 5.36 acre, 5.36 acre farmhouse property. It was the original settlement for the city of Alpharetta, and it's slated for a heritage park. Of all of the pieces of property that we are putting a park in, this is by far the most difficult just because of the topography. So we are currently having this particular area surveyed. I have a complete survey, and once we get that survey with the necessary survey and engineering assessments, we'll be able to determine how we're going to develop that and what our next step is. So we're the survey is currently being done on that site, and as soon as we get that back, we'll give you an update on that. Any questions on the? We're expecting that survey to be done on May the 13th, so it's coming in soon. Any questions? Old Rucker Park, it's the remaining 7.5 acres of this park. We're going to be constructing a park. Of course, Old Rucker Park is the location of the current farm, and the farm will not be touched with this particular development. But we've had our public meetings, and I'm gonna switch. Say this is the rendering that came back after the. This is the rendering that we had before the public meeting, and again, we are working to get a design company on board. We have an RFP that is due back, that was released on April the 14th for the design. And again, once we get a design company, they're going to take all the public input we have and put it on their property, and then we'll come back, show the public that, as well as come back to this group. So the next step for Old Rucker Road is the design stage.
And if I could, just because you keep talking about coming back to this group, will it be going through the rec commission before it comes to? Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure we weren't skipping them.
So the step, once we get a design, once we have a design firm on board and we get a design, we're going to show that to the public. It'll probably be done on the website and through social media. We're not going to have another meeting, but we're going to let them, we'll get some input with them. Then it'll go to the Recreation Commission, and then it'll come to Mayor and Council. So everybody will have seen it and have a chance to comment on it before it comes to Council. Okay, the next one is Union Hill Park. This is, we're taking an existing park and reimagining that park. It's gonna, we've had some public engagement already on that in a visioning program, and I'm gonna flip ahead on the park and show you again. We did that word graph, and you can see what they want to do out there. The folks that weighed in, they still want to keep skating, they want to keep walking, they want to keep playing, trail walking, and those kind of things. So if you go back, we are currently out to bid on the design for that as well. That went out on April the 14th. And so again, when we get that design company back on it, we'll be doing that same process with Union Hill that we are doing the rest of. This is a schematic drawing of what Union Hill could look like. And again, we haven't designed the park, but this is what we used in our public meetings to get to the point where we're going to be able to design that park. Oh, any questions on Union Hill? Okay, next is the Wills Park maintenance, Wills Park, excuse me, Freudian slip there. Wills Park Equestrian Center. This is the total redo of the Equestrian Center at Wills Park. It includes new horse barns, renovating all three of the existing arenas. They improved the drainage and erosion control, new footings, new fencing, new lightings, and improving the stormwater management as well as access to the barn. We have put that request for proposal design services out, and that was advertised on April the 7th and should be coming in soon. So once we have that, we'll come back to this group and ask for approval of a design, and then it'll work its way through that. Everybody knows that the foundation, Equestrian Center Foundation, is committed to raising $5 million for this project, and because of that, they will be part of the request for when we're talking about a design company. They will have input into that as we move forward and bring a group to you for approval. Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Markle.
Well, you just stepped right into it. Where is the foundation on raising their money? I mean, they can have some input if they're raising the money. If they're not going to be able to raise the money, I don't know how much input they should have.
Well, they have committed to the $5 million, and we know we can't start spending money until they have raised money. So we're not going to spend our $5 million and then go look for them to spend $5 million. They're going to have to raise the money as we go along before we can spend that money.
What's their time frame to raise their portion?
They think they can raise that $5 million in about 2 years, totally in 2 years.
So we're not going to start this construction for 2 years?
No. They can raise the whole $5 million in 2 years. They will raise, as they raise money, then we'll be able to do projects. They'll have to raise more or less half of the money to do a project. So if we run up on it, the next part of the project is a $500,000 project. They've got to raise $250,000 before we spend our $250,000.
So what's the plan if they stall at $2 million and come back and just say, hey, we overestimated?
Then as far as I know, the project stops because we've not committed to spending money unless they've raised that money with us.
Okay.
Councilman Will.
Mine's more of a logistical question, and only because I'm curious. 380 stalls for horses seems like a lot of horses. Do we ever have that many out there?
Well, currently we don't because we're using some of those stalls for our maintenance shop. But there are maybe 3 or 4 times a year where we have the big horse shows and they're all being used.
How many stalls do we have now?
2. Let me look. 2. Hang on. We have 290 right now.
290. We're going to go to 380. Okay, thank you.
Well, again, that was 380 according to the plan. To be perfectly honest with you, we don't know if we're going to be able to get 380 in there based on stream bank, how close we are to the stream bank and all like that. But that would be the absolutely maximum number. A lot of that's going to depend on design because we don't know about stormwater and all that yet. So there's just so many unknowns in the design on that.
Another crazy question then. So if it was originally designed for 380 at 5 plus 5 million, and we only get 290, does that 10 million come down, or do we take the same amount of money and spend it on other things within Equestrian Center?
We would use it for other things. We just try to do more.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, we're committed to that amount. Yeah.
But not specifically for the 380, just
right, because we don't know how that's going to design out because we couldn't commit to 380 because we don't know if it's going to design out with 380.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Binder?
The increase, which we don't know what it will be like after we look at the buffers and everything, the stormwater, but the increase in the barns was also taken into account because we were adding an additional ring?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, yes, we're adding an additional ring, which we're doing right now outside of the bond referendum. The new rink is outside of the bond referendum, but we're adding a new rink to that, and with the idea that we're going to be able to accommodate a little bit larger shows as well as what we call A-level shows. What not we, they call A-level shows. So.
Any other questions about the Equestrian Center project?
Right.
Please proceed.
And then the last one that I'm going to report on before I turn it over to Pete is the Wills Park improvement. And this is the basically where we're going to be improving. The goals is to unite the various park facilities, identify key facility improvements, and strengthen the connections to nearby neighborhoods. The 5 major projects that we currently have as part of our design RFP are the 2 gateways, one at Roswell Street, one at Wills Road, the pedestrian spine that runs completely through the park, a redo of Wacky World Playground, a redo of Wacky World Restroom, and a redo of the Waggy World Dog Park. Sorry, a lot of W's there. And then I think the last time we were talking, again, the RFQ for design went out again on April the 7th. We are doing a couple of things different with this. The design proposal that we're going to be designing does not include the design of the restroom and does not include the design of the playground, because we're going to do those separately. We know the design of the restroom was approved several years ago. It's currently on your screen. That's what the restroom is going to look like. We're going from three stalls on the men's side and 4 on the women to 12 on both sides, plus a family restroom in this particular facility. So this particular project is already designed, so we didn't want to include that in the design proposal, as well as the Wacky World, the playground was a community build program. 22 years ago, the community came together and physically built the playground that you see, and we are going to come back with a community build playground. So that playground is going to go away, but the idea is we're going to replace it with another community build playground. So we're going to invite the community to come out and help us build this playground like they did 22 years ago. And then, so that completes my part of the proposal, and I'll turn it over to Pete for the Alpharetta project.
Good evening again, Council. Alpha Loop. So we have 2 sections of Alpha Loop, and one's a T-SPLOST funded project, and one is a bond funded project. So we're going to separate them, but we'll talk about it at the same time. The bond portion actually is the section that we have earmarked for the tunnel underneath Haynesbridge Road. It's North Fulton CID allocated, I think it was $800,000 towards the design. I think it was $700,000, $800,000 towards the design of the tunnel. RFPs went out. 3 firms were shortlisted, and then there were 2 were interviewed, and they are working on finalizing a contract with their preferred vendor, which is KCI. So there's actually a meeting this Thursday with the team to go over the first scope of work. The primary scope of the work is to do a survey and do a subsurface utility exploration to figure out if the tunnel can even go underneath without significant utility to be relocated. So we don't mind some utilities being relocated for a project of this nature, but if we're talking about a Georgia Power duct bank, it may be cost prohibitive. So starting there, and once we get KCI aboard, the contract moves forward, then we'll have more dates to provide everybody. The other section is actually a T-SPLOST project that people are more familiar with. This is from Chelsea Walk to Northwinds. We are in the process of having the 2 preferred vendors reviewing our plans. They're going to see the schedule of items, and our goal is to be back in front of you June 27th, if there is a meeting that date, to recommend approval of a vendor. So it's progressing very, very nicely, the procurement phase.
Any questions from council? Appreciate all your work on it, Pete. So that will wrap up the bond project update. Glad to see a lot of progress been made over the last 6 months, and we'll move on to the third and final workshop item, which is street performer permit application and program.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Cultural Arts Commission took on this initiative and is bringing it forward. The idea is that this would be a program that the Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Services Department would run. So it's not something the Cultural Arts Commission would run, but it would be an actual program. But because it impacts the downtown area in its entirety, we wanted to just bring y'all up to date and make sure there weren't any red flags as far as from the mayor and council. So the idea is to establish public entertainment areas to enhance the ambiance, or as they say over in France, the ambiance of the city. We know Alfreda is a cool place, and we're trying to figure out ways to keep it cool and to keep it relevant. This would regulate the use of right-of-ways and public spaces, property for street performers. There would be a permit that would be required for everybody that is performing. The performers are vetted by our department. In other words, somebody's just not going to show up and don't look like they belong there, or has any kind of entertainment that we wouldn't approve. They would be vetted properly. They would have some kind of buy-in, because the permit would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 to $50 a year for them to be a vetted performer. We would require ID badges for all of these performers, and there would only be specific areas, designated areas, pre-approved areas that they could be at, as well as pre-approved times. And these performers would work for tips and not be paid a salary or by the city. They would work for tips. That's the highlights of the project that you see, the program that you see in front of you. Again, this would be like a trial, really. We want to try it for a little while and see if it's going to work. We are to the point where we've probably done maybe 75 to 80% of the work that we need to do on this, but we wanted to bring it to Mayor and Council and get feedback before we move any further. Be glad to answer any questions.
Yes. So if you go to some of the cities where this is common, Asheville is one, it's almost a circus environment. And that draws in more people from that environment, if you will. So you say only these people are allowed in that have the permit, but yet they draw other people in that want to come and hang out with it as well. When you talk about working for tips, we're already fighting panhandlers as it is. This is a panhandler in a clown costume, or something of that nature. I'm not a big fan of this on an ongoing, any given day, any given evening. They can be in any of these little 7 or 8 spots, hitting our citizens up for money. And they can become aggressive. I think we got a classy downtown. I think this could be cool as an event. You could do a Saturday with street performers, one or a couple a month. But everything I've read in this, and I appreciate the work that they're doing. I appreciate what they're trying to do. I think it takes away from the quality of the downtown that we've built and created. So I'm not a big fan of legalizing panhandling, which is what this basically would do. And it's nothing personal to you or anybody on the committee. When I read this and I think about the places I've been and I look and walk through our downtown, that's kind of where I am on it. So if you wanted feedback, there's feedback.
Thank you.
Councilman Mitchell.
I'm of a different opinion. I think they're providing a quality service. I think once our city, as it has grown and become more of a tourist destination, you see these things in a lot of desirable cities. I saw a lot of them on vacation recently. And it could be somebody playing the cello, which is a very nice, soothing kind of music. It could be a jazz musician. It doesn't have to be a clown or a ventriloquist or something like that. But even street performers add a lot of life to the area. And a lot of these, they make their living doing these kind of performances. And so it's live art. And I'm very supportive, and I'm very appreciative of the Cultural Arts Commission coming up with this, because what it does, to me, it weeds out those who just set up shop, and it's not like they're asking for a handout for nothing. They're performing and doing a service for the community. And I think most people that gather around, at least where I've seen it, they love it and they appreciate it, and they tip, these folks to be there. And it adds a lot to the ambiance of the city. So I'm very supportive.
Councilman Well?
Well, to go back in the other direction, I actually have a place down in Clearwater, and it's got a beautiful boardwalk. And one of the things that detracts from the area, quite frankly, is the fact that we do have all these street performers, and they do the same thing. They pay a fee. They've got little circles they have to stand in. And it tends to block traffic. It tends to get in people's way. People have to walk around them to get around where they're going. I'm just, as I've had a discussion this afternoon, I'm not in support of this at all. Potentially maybe on a wooden wire type of event where people are already in that type of environment, but I just think it would take away from Alpharetta and what we've built as well. So,
Councilman Hydes.
Well, Director Rogers, you'll be like watching a tennis match back and forth. I appreciate the Cultural Arts Commission leaning into this. I understand that they've spent a considerable number of meetings trying to come up with a good plan with a lot of thought into it. And, as one of the many heavy users and consumers of downtown, one of the things I've always appreciated is all the music that comes from the different quarters when you walk from around downtown. And, I think where I am on this is I'd like to see how it works. So if we did it, it doesn't say if we approve it, we're doing it for the next 10 years or in perpetuity. But if we do it and it works well, then I think that'll be an additional success. And just the lights and sounds and the atmosphere of downtown with additional music at designated places. I agree with Councilman Mitchell that, it's better to control something than to let it control you. So if somebody has to apply for a license in order to play publicly, those are the people who will play, and we know where they are, and we will have cause, I would understand, if somebody is playing just anywhere else and they're not licensed, then that would be cause to move them along, I would believe. Conversely, if we didn't have a licensing program for musicians or whatever the case is in designated locations, I'm not quite sure what the grounds might be to say you need to move along if you're playing for music or playing music for tips or whatever the case is. I don't know if we have an ordinance on that, but I like the idea. I like the idea to test it to see how it plays out, at least in a first year. But that's why we have a council. We have differences of opinion. So,
Councilman Binder.
Well, I'm going to back my director of fun on this one. So I've been proven wrong and wrong again when I've had concerns of how this is going to change or how is this going to affect, the environment we have. You guys have done a great job on it. So I'd like to see how we can get this going. I could see that it would be a good addition. And man, I've been here on Friday and Saturday night, and sometimes it looks like a circus already, so you might as well bring the band in on that one. But I'm glad the attorney, or my friend Councilmember Hypes mentioned it. That was my exact thoughts, is if we have a program like this, then it helps us say, hey, where's your license on it? Because we're already seeing some performers on some of our grocery stores and neighboring grocery stores in the city. So I'd like to see how that could work to alleviate some of the things that we're already seeing on music in areas. So I would like to see more, and I could be supportive of it. So keep going.
Councilman Dorito?
Councilman Merkel got me on the panhandling and a clown suit comment. kind of made me think more about this. I don't know if I have an opinion one way or the other right now. I do thank the Cultural Arts Commission for spending a lot of time, and yourself on bringing this forward. I spend a lot of time downtown, not as much as Councilman Hypes, although when I'm there, I always see him there. But I also spend time over in Avalon. And one of the things I've noticed lately is because the city's become very successful in attracting both our existing residents and people coming from outside the city into Alfreda as a place to come and be entertained and go to fine dining and great restaurants and all that good stuff. But I noticed in the last few weeks, particularly at Avalon, where it's getting close to really nice weather, or it is nice weather now, and school's about ready to let out soon for the summer, where I'm starting to see congregations of young citizens, similar to what I guess North Point Mall was before we had Avalon, and where it almost created an environment of families in Alpharetta who once enjoyed going to, say, the mall back then, or currently to Avalon or City Center, that we could risk the brand of these areas, which are very positive right now, of being diminished if the city is not careful in managing these places as, I'll call them hangouts, where, in social media today, we'll have, youth from all over the place just walking around these cities. I've been Avalon 3 weeks ends in a row right now, and I've seen the same thing. I've seen some young kids coming down the street there, blasting their stereos. I'd seen 25, 30 groups of high school kids walking down the sidewalks where people are trying to enjoy restaurants and shopping. And why I'm saying this is the same thing could maybe build in City Center. And I'm bringing this up because adding right now to that growing situation by allowing people or street vendors to, express their cultural artist abilities and things of that nature, I don't know if that lends itself to creating a more crazy environment, but I personally want to listen more and discuss this a little bit more, because if we're going to do it, I'd like to make sure that this is going to be a maintained family environment where people want to come down and spend an evening at any location in the city, to make sure that we don't turn into an entertainment district that is frankly not frequented by our own residents because they either feel that it's getting crazy or out of control. And so I don't really have a strong position one way or the other. I'd like to address what I see as a growing problem in these areas right now that could be lend itself to a serious situation that could occur in the future, and we want to be proactive, make sure that doesn't happen. So that's where I'm at right now. I want to try to get our hands around the growing popularity of these areas of the city, and make sure we have a proper police presence, and that we maintain an environment that is friendly, family, that has people wanting to basically, hey, let's go down to City Center, let's go to Avalon, let's go to the future North Point or whatever, and make sure that we're proactively staying ahead of the curve and not letting these become hangouts and places for any age groups to hang out in clumps of individuals that could create a potentially dangerous environment for fights breaking out or whatever. And I just think I'm not sure we're ready to go down that path right now until we continue to help proactively manage the growth of popularity of these areas to maintain that type of environment I'd like to see maintained. I'm hoping I'm making sense.
So I don't feel strongly one way or the other. I certainly don't want to do anything that's going to negatively impact what's drawing people into our community, especially downtown right now. At the same time, while I certainly appreciate the fact that Councilman Will has experienced negative impacts and the concerns that Mayor Pro Tem Merkel have, as a traveler, I've never really experienced those negative aspects. I've seen the buskers outside Publix, and that doesn't bother me. I'm much more concerned by the panhandlers on street corners with signs and in the middle of intersections and things like that. But I do think we need to be really thoughtful and cautious about how we do it. I mean, the cities I remember seeing it, I've seen them in subways in Manhattan, busking, naked cowboy in Times Square, and things like that. And I don't necessarily want to see the naked cowboy in Alpharetta, but...
Well, I hope he loses his license if he...
You've never seen him? He was on the Tonight Show, man. Come on.
If he gets a license, I hope he loses it.
So I'm open to having this discussion about how we can do it well and do it appropriately. I'd really like to hear some legal opinions about how this is done, because you're not able to limit it based on the content of the speech being done. So contortionist kind of makes me nervous, depending on what contortions they're doing. But I'm open to having this conversation. So maybe, I don't know what the next step needs to be to try to figure this out, but I'd like to know more about it before I fall down on the yay or nay side.
I'll be glad to take the comments that we have here, go back to the Cultural Arts Commission and have some additional conversations, and then kind of let them decide whether they want to bring it back or what they want to do, because this is not a staff initiative. This is really an initiative from the Cultural Arts Commission. So we'll go back and talk with them, share the concerns that everybody has, and then we'll see what steps they want to go next. So
okay, and I'm not averse to having a conversation with them. They may have some, experience or some information that would be worthwhile for me to help flesh it out. But I would be concerned about any negative consequences. I just not sure where I would stand at this point.
All right.
Any other comments or anything? We're not voting tonight. Thanks, sir. Appreciate you. Councilman Hypes.
Before
he tried to move quick.
Would you like to give a final, maybe not final, but an update before Taste of Alpharetta starts, which is a week from Thursday?
I'll be glad to. As Councilman Height said, a week from this Thursday, we have the 30th annual Taste of Alpharetta, which is what we understand. We have just found out we're the longest running now taste of a food taste festival here in the greater Atlanta area. So we're real proud of that. We're at 62 restaurants, I think, now, right now, which is really a lot when you consider the environment that folks that are running restaurants right now are in with the inflation, the lack of being able to find help, that basically 62 of our local restaurants that said, we want to be part of the community and are going to set up a second shop, if you will, in downtown Alfreda next Thursday. We are expecting a record crowd. There's no reason for us not to think that this is going to be a record crowd. Everything that we've done up to now, food truck alley, there was a record crowd. So we feel like that we're going to have a record crowd. I've heard numbers thrown out that anywhere from 40 to 50,000 people are probably going to be here if the weather cooperates. We are closing Highway 9, if you remember. Highway 9 is going to close in the afternoon on Thursday, and we'll stay closed through it. Now, we're not going to put any. There's not going to be any booths or anything on Highway 9, so that as soon as the event's over, we can open Highway 9 as quickly as we can. But there won't be any. We won't have to worry about people coming and going across Highway 9. Wills Park is going to be a good place to park early on, but we're not going to be running a shuttle from Wills. We have decided that Wills Park is a downtown park, and if you park in Wills Park, enjoy the walk over to the Taste of Alfreda. It's not very far. We are going to be running some shuttles from some parking on Haynes Bridge Road, where right there where Cookout is, and right in there we've been able to secure a partnership with them. So there's going to be shuttles running from that, bringing people down to City Center and to downtown. Off the top of my head, I think that's a good report. We do have 3 stages, 3 smaller stages where we're going to have music throughout the night on all 3 of those stages, strategically located throughout Taste of Alfreda. And we're just excited. We're really excited that we're back, and really excited. As someone said, I think the citizens are hungry for the Taste of Alfreda.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
With that pun, we'll close this segment of our meeting. Now it's time we offer an opportunity for public comment. However, I don't really see any public still in attendance, so we'll go ahead and close public comment. Do we have any reports this evening? Seeing none, I'm excited to request a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Heitz and second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. All those in favor of adjourning into executive session, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. Councilman Binder? And it does pass unanimously. This meeting is adjourned.